Hello everyone, it's Jennifer here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to perform out of the sample test. The purpose of the out sample test is to test whether we can use Fema and French three-factor model to forecast future returns. For example, I have a sample of 10 stocks. For each stock, I want to forecast returns for every month starting from the 31st of January 2000 to the 31st of July 2000. Let's highlight that. So for each month I want to forecast returns, I will use the previous 12 months data to estimate the FF3 equations. So for example, I want to estimate the expected returns for stock 1 on the 31st of January 2000. For example, we're dealing with this particular month. In order to calculate expected return for stock 1 in this month, I will use the previous 12-month data, which is this one here, right? I calculate the excess returns on these stocks, then I regress them on the previous 12-month three-factors returns. Now, together with the coefficients from the regressions and the average factor returns in the previous 12 months, I will calculate the expected return for this month. Moving on to the next month, I will repeat the same procedure. That is, say, now I'm moving on to this month. I will use the previous 12-month data, so my data is rolled over by 1 month. I will calculate excess returns for stock 1 during that period and then regress on the three-factor returns. I use the coefficients from the regressions. I calculate the average MRP, S&P, and HML during that period and use these inputs to calculate the expected return for this month. Okay, so I keep repeat the process until I finish calculating all the expected returns for the first stocks. And then I move on to the second stocks, and so the first thing we need to do is to save this workbook as a macro enable workbook XLSM, just like I did here. So let's change this into our sample. Okay, right. So now I will access the VBA window by pressing Alt F11, right? So I just create a new module, just ignore this one. I will insert a new module just like we did in the previous videos. Okay, so I will create a subroutine called out sample brackets and enter. So because you are going to work with large data set, I'm going to open a new worksheet so that we can store our output in a totally new sheet like this. So I will name this out sample. Okay. Okay, so I think that it would be better if we flatten the data set, because if you have 150 columns, the data just look way too big, right? So I do that by going to the pivot wizard, choose the pivot table and pivot chart wizard, right? So if you don't know how to enable this, then please go back to my summary statistic video or the PowerPoint slides, right? Or you can also access that by pressing Alt D. So Alt D, right? And then P. Now I will select multiple consolidation ranges. I will create the pay fields. Next, I will select just the 150 stock returns data. sorry, in this case 10 stocks. Add next new worksheet, right? So I go to the end and double click on that. Okay, I will copy this into my out sample table. So right click, right? Don't know, something wrong with my, yeah, and paste special. You can change this into short date format. So this will be date, this will be ticker, and this will be your stock returns. Now I'm going to merge the Australian factors data into this table, right? So I will merge market risk premium data, S&B, HML, and risk-free rate. I have these factors in the tab called FF Global Factor here, right? So let's check out this data. Yeah, so this is the Australian factor that I have in this sample. I will merge these two data using the lookup function. I type VLOOKUP, so the lookup value would be the date values. My table array would be the Australian factor table, right? With the column index, the market risk premium return data is in the second column, so I will type 2 for the column index. And I would like to return an exact match, so I will type false. Now I want to copy this formula to other columns on my right hand side. I will go back to my formula and put a $sign in front of the letter B. You see, so now when I copy this to the other cells, it will keep my lookup value in the date column. Now S&B is in the third column. I change that into 3. HML in the fourth, I change to 4, and RF in the fifth column, I will change to number 5. So now you can apply the formula to the whole table like I did. Okay. So now every time I do with a single stock, say for example stock 2, then I will need to extract the relevant data just for that stocks. So I'll show you how to do this with advanced filtering. Just to illustrate the process, you can do this with workbook command by going to Data tab and select Advanced Filtering here. But before we use it, we need to do a little setup. The advanced filtering allows us to filter the data according to the headers. For example, I want to extract the date, access returns, and the 3-factor returns into a table here. The headers in the destination table have to be exactly the same as in the original table. Therefore, I will copy the headers from the original table into this one. Okay. I'll add another column here for ticker name. So now this is my destination table. I move on to creating a criteria range. So I insert a column here. Since I filled my data based on the ticker name, the header of my criteria range will be ticker. Under this header, I will copy the ticker name that I'm interested in. For example, I'm interested in stock 2. So I will type stop2 here. Now I can go to advanced filtering, click on that. Sorry. Okay, so click on advanced filtering. With the list range, we select this table. Click on copy to another location. Criteria range, like I said, this will be the ticker, stop2, and we will copy. So in the copy to range, I will select the headers in my destination table. Now click on unique records only. So you see this is the data for stop2 that is extracted into the destination table. So now let's do it with VBA. I access VBA with outer F11. So you see here I have created a subroutine called out sample. Similar to the previous videos, I also name the data ranges so I can refer to them later on. The first one is the data range, which is my flattened data set that I created before. This data range starts from cell A1 and go to cell I191. Since advanced filter function works with headers, I will include the first rows in the range. My criteria range is the area from K1 to K2, and my copy to range is the headers in my destination table. I name this as the stop data range, M1 to R1. Now I apply the advanced filtering function in VBA. The syntax starts with the original table name. In this case, it's data dot advanced filter space. Now we declare the action. So action colon equal to XL filter copy. Criteria range here would equal to the criteria range that we defined before, which we named it criteria. The copy to range would be the stop data range. So, and for the option unique, we select true. Now let's try to run this with F8. You see, this is my data for stop2 that has been extracted using VBA. Now let's start to write a for loop so that we can repeat the filtering function for each stop in the sample. In order to do that, we need to create a column with unique ticker name. I will just quickly delete that one and repeat this procedure for you. So I will go to the ticker columns in my original data, copy it into this J column here. I go to data, choose remove duplicates, choose continue with the current selection, and click on remove duplicates. Okay, so now you have 10 unique tickers. So I have changed the stop 1 to stop 1A because for some reason when I try to filter for stop 1, it filters for both stop 1 and stop 10. I hope this doesn't happen in your data. Okay, so I changed this to unique ticker, and I also define this range in my code as well. So I type dim unique ticker as range and set the unique ticker equal to range J2 to J11. I ignore the header this time. Now I will write a for loop so that I can repeat the filtering function for each unique ticker. x equal to 1 to 10 because I have 10 stocks. So for every x value, I will assign into the criteria range. So the criteria range is basically the two cell K1 to K2 here, and I will replace the stock name in cell 2 with the ticker values. So I will assign this to the unique ticker range. I type unique ticker dot cells x. So now you see when x increments by 1, it will move the ticker name to the next values. Let's try to do this with the F8 key. Now you see it keeps replacing my data in the destination table. For each stock, we need to calculate expected returns using FF3 model. For example, I need to calculate expected returns for the period starting from January 2000 to July 2000. For each month during this green period here, I will need the previous 12-month data to estimate FF3. So for example, if I want to calculate expected returns for the January 2000, so let me highlight that day for you, okay? Then I will need the data in the previous 12 months, so all of the data during the red dates here. And moving on to the next month, February 2000. Then my regression data will be rolled down by 1 month. So you see the regression data will be the one that I selected here. Okay, so you get the idea. Using the workbook commands, you can actually extract the data you want into this area here using offset function. So I will select the table, I go to the formula bar and I type offset. So the reference cell would be the date here, so the first date that I want to calculate expected returns. So from the reference cell, I will go back by 12 rows, so I type -12, and I will go to the right by 2 columns, so I type 2. The height of my data is 12 and the width is 4. So you see now it has collected the regression data I need to calculate the expected return for the first month, January 2000. Now with this data, I can perform linear regression using the excess returns as the dependent variable. I will select the area down here to store my regression results. I will type linnest. The expected return will be the dependent variable, and the 3 factors will be the independent variables. And I will select, that should be true to estimate the intercept, and the other true to return additional statistics. So you see now this is the result from the linear regression. Similar to other videos that I have shown you, the first row is the coefficients and the second row is the standard error. That guy, the blue guy, there is R squared. The coefficients and standard error are presented in reverse order. So you see the first one will be H, the second will be S, the last two will be beta and alpha. In order to calculate expected excess returns, I also need to calculate the average factor returns in the previous 12 months. So I will do that here, as you can see. Now, I will then calculate expected excess returns. That will be each factor multiplied with its average factor returns. So that will be H multiplied with average of HML plus S multiplied with SMB and beta multiplied with MRP. That is my expected excess returns. So the plan is I will calculate expected excess returns for each stock into this table. right? So when I move on to another month, I would simply change my regression data, say row over by one row, right? You see all the result will be changed, so I will copy the result to the second cell, and I keep doing like that until I finish all the firm month returns data. Okay, so let's do that with VBA. In order to repeat all the actions we just did, with VBA, I will first define my ranges. So as you know that we're going to extract data, regression data into this table here, so I will define that with rec data as range, and I will set the rec data equal to the range. So you see it starts from range S2, right, and then end with range W12. Okay. Right. Now, I also define the expected return month as this area here. So I will also define this as a range and set E month, which means that the month we're going to calculate expected access returns. So that will be range L14 to L20. Okay. Right. Now I will write another for loop inside the X for loop so that I can extract the regression data for expected returns. So I will type for m equal to 1 to 6, right? Why is it to 6? Because you see in the E month range, which includes the month that I will need to calculate expected returns, right? So this area here, you see the blue array here, it included the months that I have to calculate expected returns, and we have 6 values, so I will type for m equal to 1 to 6, and I will make a note here to remind me about it. Actually, this function would go after the advanced filtering function, so I will just move it down here. I make a note so I won't make the mistake for a second time. Okay, so after I filter the data for each step, right, I will calculate the expected returns for each month starting from January 2000 to July 2000. Okay, so now I will select the data by using each date value here as a reference cell. In VBA, the offset function works a little bit different from the workbook version, right? So there are no options to specify height and width of the destination data. If we want to return an array, we need to start with a reference array of the same size. So I will show you how to do this. A bit tricky, but I will use some variable to define the data that we want. So I will firstly use a reference cell. So I will define reference cell as a use a range. Okay, so the reference cell here I will set the reference cell. So I will set the reference cell within the loop, because every time the reference cell will change, so the reference cell will equal to every value in the e-month range. E-month n, right? So when n equal to 1, the reference cell would be the first, the January 2000, and so on. Now, so this is the reference cell. I would like to select this whole table, this whole area here, as my my reference array to start with. So if I can select this whole red array here as my reference array, I then can use offset function in VBA to reference to other column, for example the access return volume, easily. So I do that by creating two variables, begin cell and end cell. Okay, so here I will set the begin cell. In order to reach the begin cell, I also use the offset function. Okay, so that will be, I will use the ref cell, right? Dot offset. So the row offset, I will go back by 12 rows, so I would minus 12. The column offset, I will select the same date column, so I didn't offset for any column, that would be 0. Okay. Now I will set the end cell equal to the rep cell, so offset, right? So this one I only go back by 1 row, so that minus 1, and also I didn't go back, I didn't move away from any other column, so I type 0 for the column. Okay, so now I create the variable, another variable called period, and I will define the period as the range that start from the begin cell and go to the end cell. So I start begin cell, comma, end cell. Okay, so the period now would be this column here. This is the period column. Now I can now copy the values into my regression data here. So I can type that's rec data, right? Column 1. So this is the date column. I simply copy the period column, the value in the period range into this. With the other values, right? Column 2. So that's the access returns, right? With this access return, I use the offset function. So you see, now if I start the first argument as an array, then it's also returned to me an array with the same size. So I will type period offset. The column offset, you see from my column here. Say for example, I will color it with this red light pink color, right? So from that column going to my access returns, I will go. I didn't go away from any other row, so there's no changes in. So row offset will be 0, and the column offset will be 2 because I go to the right by 2 columns. And then for the third column, the MRP. So this period offset, right? 0, 3. Right. Sorry, I have the little comma here. It's not right. Column 4 equal to period offset. I select 0 with 4. Okay, so that should finish my data. So let's put a next m here and try to run if my code is correct yet. So you see, it will first view the data. So now here I have the step 1A data. So every time you can go back and see check out the process. So the reference cell now will be the 31st of January 2008. So keep pressing F8. It will keep update the value here, right? My right data here. Let's see. So you see now it's copied the date, the period date here into this table, right? I feel like we're missing one values, right? So that's potentially because we defined this with only 11 values. So if this happened, that's not right. Okay, so I will insert one more rows here. Okay, yeah. So this should be the data we need. It should have 12 rows. Okay, so I will go back to my rect data and I will define this. So I change this into 13, reset my code, and then debugging it again. So when you work with a long code, it's important that you check it once a while before we move on. So now you see it's finished. So in order for this to copy the value, we need to add the word value, right? Dot value here dot value. Okay, so reset F8. See M1, M2. You see, so now it's copied the access returns here for me. Let's check if it's doing it correctly. Yep, looks correct, right? Go back to this. Let's copy the MRP. Yep, and SMP and HTML. Oh, we didn't copy the fifth column, so we have right. So we're missing out the fifth column here. I will add one more column. 5 equal to the period offset 05 value. Is that true? So I will reset this, right, and we'll press F8. See if it's working correctly. So now we're dealing with step 1A, right? So maybe I will minimize this a little bit smaller. Go back to this, but we see so this is the access returns, this is the MRP returns, this is the SMB, and that's the HTML. Okay, so I think we did it correctly. Right, that's good. Okay, so now let's move on to the estimation of regression. Okay, so I will use the access returns as the dependent variable, right? So I can go back to this, yeah, dim dependent as range. Sorry, should be range. Okay, and I also create a range for independent variables. Okay, so I will set the dependent here equal to range S2, right? So it start from here S2 and let's go to S13. S2 to S13. Okay, about the independent variable, I will set it to the range starting from T2 and it ends here, so that will be V13, right? V13. Okay, so I will also define this area here. We go dim rec result as range set rec result equal to range. So you see here it starts with S13, sorry, it's S17 and ends with V23. So S17 to V23. Okay, good. Now, in this part here, I will assign the red result, right? And that's I would type application dot worksheet function dot thinness, right? So dependent variable, independent, true, and true. So let's see if this works. I will reset my code first, right? And I press F8. See if I got the regression result. Okay, so that's good. Now I go another step to calculate the average MRP returns, right? So I will define this range. Dim AV FF3 as range, right? And set AV FF3 equal to the range starting from T14 and ends with B14. Okay, so in that range I will calculate the average returns for each stock. So AB FF3 cells 1, so this will be the average of MRP. This will be application dot worksheet function dot average, right? So this will be the average of MRP. So that will be the rec data columns 3. Okay, I will do the same for other cells. So I basically just copy this, right? This is 2, this will be 4, 3, this will be 5. Okay, so I see if I have finished that. So I will reset my code again and press F8. Right, so that looks good. Now with these values, I will calculate the expected access returns here. Okay, so okay, so now I will calculate expected returns and store into the table here. So I have create a table, and my plan is to store the ticker in the first column, date in the second column, and expected access returns in the third column. So these index here, I just try to explain to you how I'm going to store the outcome, right? So you know how to calculate expected returns, right? We simply multiply the coefficients with the average factor returns. The point here, the problem here is how do we direct Excel to know which row within this output table to store the results. So I firstly define the output table. So I call that as the access range, right? Access returns. So dim access returns as range, and I will set the access return as the range starting from X2 here, right? Go to Z61. This is because I have 6 month data for each stock, multiply for 10 stock, that 60 row, and add with the first row for heading. I got Z61 as my last cell. You can actually create a bigger table. Say for example, you can try Z100, right? Just to make sure that your table will be big enough to carry your data. Okay, so these index here, I just try to explain to you how we're going to use the index to direct Excel to store the results. Okay, so when x equal to 1, I store the first ticker here, right? The date here and the expected access returns here. When I move to the when m equal to 2, this expected access return will be stored in the second row of the expected access return column. When I move to the second step, right, when x equal to 2, m equal to 1, then k will equal to 7. So I would try to work out a formula to relate k to x and m, right? And that formula is k equal to 6 multiplied with x minus 1 plus m. If you have 60 monthly expected returns per step, you can change 6 to 60. So now I will show you how this formula will be useful. I will first calculate the access returns, right? So I create a variable. So when you do not set this variable into a particular type, it would understand this as a value. So I will calculate access returns, right? Simply taking the average 3 factors multiplied with the coefficients. Okay. Okay, so now I have finished calculating the expected access returns for the first step in the first month. I will assign this value to the table xrates. So I will type xrates columns 3 cells k. Okay, so before that I will quickly calculate k. So k would be 6 multiplied with x minus 1 plus n. We need a multiply sign here. Okay. And we assign the xrates return into this cell. Now I will reset my code and try to debug to see if my code worked correctly. Right, so you see it filled in the cell here, the expected access returns. I will try another round. Okay, so you can also fill in the ticker and the date using the similar formula. So you see what I'm doing here. I filled in the start value in the unique ticker range for the ticker name and the month in the e-month range for the month column. So you can press F5 now to see how it works.